Hello, everyone. I am so excited to have one of my favorite people that I look up to. Her name is Cris Cawley. And when I met her and I heard about her story being a mother of three and the CEO of Game Changing Publishing, an eight-figure company, I just knew I had to get to know her and work closely with her, learn her story. So I'm so excited to have her here. And I know as women, like we kind of forget how rare it is to achieve at such a high level. And Cris, especially when you came up, you were one of the OGs. So thank you so much for being here and just shedding light on your journey to inspire so many women that are and men that are watching this.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so I always have to ask this question because I'm big on achieving while being aligned and with
Mm.
your values and just seeing what you've accomplished. I mean, it's the top of the top percentage of business owners that make it, right? And thinking about where you've been and as a mother, like what was the biggest thing you had to overcome to be able to break through and play at such a high level without feeling like you were completely sacrificing your other roles and identities as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as a community member?
No, absolutely. So obviously being a mom, I started out, I just turned 50. So I started when I was 25 in this business. So I was young. I had my first baby and the world changed, right? I think anybody who's had a child that first kid, you're like, whoa, it's a whole new world, right? And I think back then, I mean, the biggest thing for me was that I recognized was that I wanted to be present. I wanted to be intentional about being a mom, but I wanted it all also. I wanted to have it all. I wanted to build at that time, when I started out, my goal was six figures by 25, and then it was seven figures, and then I figured, you just keep growing your goals. I didn't have huge monstrous goals in the beginning. Then again, 25 years ago, I guess 100 grand was different than it is today. But that was the thing. And it's interesting. I think initially too, my confidence, from where I started and where I am now, I guess you grow confidence as you get older, as you gain experience. But in the beginning, I felt like it was very much, I know there's males listening too, but it was a male dominated world. This whole speaking and training, I was traveling the world and doing speaking engagements and, having big groups and big events and all these things. And I was the only girl a lot of times. I was the only girl on stage. I was the only girl in the mastermind. I was the only girl, at these meetings. And I was like, what in the world? Like, where are all the powerhouse women at? What's happening here? Like, where is every, but so that was kind of interesting to me. And now today I feel like it's a little more balanced, but I just thought, why don't more women step into who they are and be confident? And I wasn't like super confident when I started, but I was like, I'm going to try, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try, and I'm going to gain confidence as I go. And had very realistic expectations for myself. And we started crushing it. And I felt like a lot of that was just mainly because there were other women who could relate, right? And men too. I mean, now our client base is like half and half, right? Basically. Actually, no, it's probably a little more men than women. So it's really inspiring to me to help other men or women, right? Just come in, just have confidence, get going in business. The entrepreneur community is what I love. That's who we serve every day. So I really love serving other entrepreneurs. And I learned that early on. I was like, it's cool to meet and mesh with other entrepreneurs who are kind of going through, they're in the same boat, they're on the same journey, we're all in it together, right? So that was a cool thing. But I would say that was probably the biggest thing I had to overcome, that and juggling being a mom and a wife, like all the things, like, hey, how can I make 6 or 7 or 8 figures and still be a mom, and live on life on my terms? Because when you start out, I feel like you build your business around, or you build your life around your business, right? And my goal was never that. My goal was to build my business around my life, right? So I had to kind of figure that out. And it took me a few years to do that.
There's so much to unpack here. And one thing you said that really stood out to me is I wanted to have it all. And that's a belief that's so rare to have it all on your terms. It feels like it's magic and not real life. So I'm curious, like what gave you, I guess, even the seed to be planted that that was even a concept you could grasp onto?
Well, I grew up in a family of, I was the oldest of three girls. My parents were divorced and we did not have it all. We had nothing. My mom, it was crazy. I mean, my parents got divorced. My mom was working like multiple jobs, making like back then it was like $3 an hour or something crazy. I don't even know how we survived. I mean, I look back and I'm like, wow. And I just remember, I love my parents. I love their work ethic. They were people that worked hard. They weren't lazy. They worked hard, but they worked hard and didn't make a lot of money. You know what I mean? It was like they were
Yeah.
just working at jobs that they could never, there was never enough. And so I feel like that's what fueled me. Like as a little girl, I remember being like 10 or 11 years old and being like, okay, this is my life. I love my parents. I love my family, but my life when I grow up and I have kids, will never be like this. Like I will do whatever it takes, And so that little fire in my belly from just the way I grew up to just I mean, I saw other people doing it, right? You look at other women and doing it. Like today, I always look at like people like Sarah Blakely. I'm like, wow, pretty cool, right? She built this $1 billion company, or Jamie Kern Lima. There's a lot of women who've done it. And they're juggling motherhood and business and all the things. And I remember when I was like 20, maybe 23-ish, something like that. I went to this thing called, it was a Peter Lowe success seminar, which is, it's such a blast from the past. I'm dating myself big time here. But it was like this big like event of like really mega successful people, people like Donald Trump, George Foreman, but there were a couple women, and ironic, it's really ironic. I don't even remember the women's names, but I was like, wow, a woman on that stage, pretty cool. You know what I mean? And not even the male woman thing. I don't want to play that card because it's not even that, but I just thought to myself, well, if that person can do it, if that person could, and those are people that appeared to me that they had it all. Like it looked like to me they had it all. I don't know if they had it all, but it just seemed that way, right? And I was inspired by that. And I was like, but I've always had this little belief, even though I was a small town girl from nowhere with nothing, who came from nothing. I was like, but if they could do it, why couldn't I do it? I mean, that person, like, I think it was other people telling their stories too. Like, I was like, oh, wow, they came from nothing too. And look at where they are. And I thought, I guess it's just, I don't know what makes it in some people, how they believe, like, I could do this. And other people are like, oh, I could never do that. You know what I mean? That's what I want to inspire people, is to hope and to dream and to believe, because why not you? When people's like, well, why me? Well, why not you? Right. So I always had that in my heart. I was never, no one had to convince me. I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. Or if he can do it, I can do it. That kind of thing.
Awesome.
So maybe it's just because I grew up, whatever, kind of hard way to go. Right. And I was like, and I wanted more so much. I feel like the people that really want it, you can't change someone's drive, right? Drive is
Okay.
a thing that's like, it's like charm, right? You can't make somebody charming. And the drive is something that just, I'm like driven just automatically. I just wake up and I have it for
I know
whatever reason.
I see you have the hunger and the like, and it's like, and I asked you this a while ago because I was like, wow, you're already at 8 figures. Why are you still so driven? Like, what is driving you? What is in there? And I get it, but I want to hear what you have to say. What's like keeping that fire lit?
Well, now what keeps it lit is that the fact that I have daughters. I have three girls who are now 14, 20, and 23. And I want to be the example. I want to show them that, because I don't want us to they have all the things, right? It's not about the things, but it's about showing them how I got the things and how they can have the things too, because I didn't have that. I mean, my dad and mom worked jobs, but I don't even know, because everyone always says, "Oh, were your parents entrepreneurs?" Not even, not even close, right? So I want to show my girls, I want to be an example. My husband's retired, right? So I don't want them just thinking like, "Oh, we don't work and we just make all this money," right? I want to show them what it takes and what's possible, and empower them, and show them, and just instill belief in them, that anything they want, they can have. They have to work for it. They have to go after it, but anything they want, they can have. And so a lot of the opportunities I've given them, and taking them to these events that we do, and taking them to just different masterminds and things, and their eyes are really open to a whole new world. So that's really what fuels me now, at this stage of my life.
I think it's so, your daughters are so blessed to grow up in a home with the belief system that truly anything they want, they can have. Because, I mean, let's be honest, women have been oppressed for centuries, and it's like to have that nurturing like container, you can only imagine what they're gonna go create from that, right?
Right. I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing it. They're starting businesses. They've already made six figures when in their teens. What they were 16 and 19, they made six figures. And I was like,
Wow.
gosh, if I knew what I know now when I was their age, I mean, I would be crushing. I mean, I already feel like I crush it, but I mean, it would just be a whole new world. So I feel like the sky is the limit for their generation, especially coming in with that attitude. And it is interesting for them because I feel like the most interesting thing for them though now, the struggle that's been created is that like a lot of their friends work at like Chick-fil-A, right? Or they're at a golf course or whatever. And it's having community of people. Like, yes, they have me, but I'm their mom. So it's a little different, right? You don't go to an event with your mom when you're forever, right? So I feel like them having community of others. So I'm also trying to get them into community so that they have people that think bigger. Because not everybody does think bigger. Let's be honest. Most people don't think bigger, right? And so getting them around people who big ideas, big dreams, successful, so that they can have community and community their age. You know, it's rare for whatever a 20-year-old to be making six figures. So it's interesting, but yeah, that's kind of been those are some of my goals and some of the things I kind of look out. I'm doing things for them, not really for myself anymore, you know?
I love that. And I was curious because for me, like as a mother, as a, CEO, I think I didn't really break through until I could release that like shame and guilt, like I wasn't doing enough as a mother. And
Mhm.
being around that community of other seven-figure moms, I think it opened up my eyes to different ways of living. So I'm curious, like, I mean, back when you first became a mom and you were a CEO, like, did you ever feel like you just were doing it wrong, and did it slow you down, or what was that like?
Oh, girl. Yes. Yes. Let me tell you. Yeah, I can tell you some stories on that one. Yeah, I always, I mean, for the longest time, as much as I was like, oh, I want to be confident, all these things, I very much so was like, am I doing this right? Or I had a lot of mom guilt,
Mhm.
when they were younger, because I did do a lot of events. I traveled the world. I was speaking all over the place. I was doing all kinds of things, TV stuff. I mean, I was doing tons of really cool stuff, really cool opportunities that I felt like at the time I couldn't pass up. But then I would have like extreme mom guilt, and I was like, oh my gosh, and my husband worked, he was a sportscaster for many years. So it was like whatever. People would help me with my kiddos and all that thing. And then I started homeschooling them when they were little. I'm like, I'm just gonna bring them on the road with me, And we did that. It was amazing, right? Because they got to travel. Even now, I mean, I'm like, my youngest is in high school, and I'm like, let's just like homeschool again and travel the world, right? And she's like, no, because they get so rooted in their communities and sports and all the things, right? So it's a little harder at this age. But yeah, I had a lot of mom guilt, and I felt like, gosh, is this right? I'm trying to make money. And then my husband retired in 2006, I think, seven, eight, I don't know, somewhere there, from being a sportscaster. So then I really had a lot of mom guilt because I'm like, because I love what I do. Like I love business. I love, empowering other women. I love those things. And I was so happy with that. But then I was like, well, no fair. My husband's at home taking her here, and he's taking her to dance, and I'm traveling on the road. Right. So then I was like, early on when they were little, I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to I want to be, I don't ever want to miss a practice. They weren't really into like games and things now. Like now they played sports and all the things. And I'm happy to say now I look back, I never missed a game. I never missed like a recital. I missed some practices, but I never missed like the big things in their life ever,
Awesome.
ever. And I was like, so it started to shift from building my life around my business to building my business around my life, right? When they were really little. My oldest two are probably 2 and 5, something like that. I was like, I started going, I don't want to miss out on anything, like ever. And my parents worked so much, they didn't have a chance to come to my stuff. Like I only remember, when I was young, I remember one softball game where my parents came, one ever.
Oh,
And the
wow.
other things, they were just working. They were just working all the time. So it was like, I didn't want to be that mom. I was like, I want to work, but I also want to prioritize and be intentional about what's important to me. And my family comes first, 1,000,000% over any amount of money any day. So that was something I kind of figured out. I was blessed to figure it out early on so that now I don't live with like a bunch of regret. You know what I mean? But yeah, there were days where I was like, oh my God, am I doing this right? Is this the right thing? Should I just be a stay-home mom? Should I, because all the other things too, society told, well, where my kids were in school, I felt like all the moms were stay-home moms. Like I was the only mom that worked. And today, even today, in this day and age, like my daughter goes to a small private school, but most of these parents don't work. And it's like I feel like the odd man out a lot of times because they're like, oh, you're always gone. I'm like, well, not really. Like she travels with me, we go do cool things, we see the world. But it is I still sometimes that comes back up and it stings a little bit when someone says that to me. Oh, you're always working, or oh, you're, and I'm like, I don't want to be that mom. you know so I get a little bit like unguarded about that because again, family first. I take my daughter to lunch
Absolutely.
every day, things like that. There's things like that I'm like, I will not miss out on that.
I think what I see happen is a lot of parents project their limiting beliefs onto you because they've chosen a different path because their beliefs said that you had to do that path in order to be a good parent. So you've like broken through. You're like on the cutting edge of you can't have it all, and my business is designed to serve me. And that alone,
Mhm.
and like this online business hustle culture where people are grinding nonstop, you've not only stayed aligned, you stayed true to your values, and you're completely out of the norm of your community. Plus, you've broken through a level of impact and income that most only dream about. Like, it's just absolutely astonishing. And so, as you think about, like, how do you keep protecting your energy and your psyche from all these, like, outside, almost like, I don't want to call it an attack, but it kind of can feel that way sometimes.
Oh, totally. Yeah, very much so. Very, and even so, even like friends, right? I have a very, very, very small group. I can count my friends on one hand, right? Because most people don't get it, right? They don't get it, and they look at what I do or how we do, or even like my next door neighbor. This is a funny story. She came over one day and she knocked on my door and she's like, "Yeah, I see that your car's always home." They never really talk to us, but she sees my car in the driveway all the time. And so she knocked on my door one day and offered me a job to be her secretary to give me something to do since I'm home all day and do nothing. And I was kind of like, oh no, I own a company. Like I work.
Wow.
It was just funny. I was like, what in the world? Like people's perceptions of things, you know what I mean? It's just so whacked and it's so like, and but I choose not to. I just don't, honestly, I don't give my energy to those people. I have a very small group of friends who know me and who understand. And this is really cool. Like when I met you, I was like, this is so cool. She's a powerhouse female entrepreneur, crushing it in your own space and what you're doing in the world and business and empowering other women. And I was like, this is amazing. Like this is the type of community that I want, right? Because I
Wow.
don't really have that in my life. If I'm missing one thing, it's probably that because you are kind of under attack. And it's not under, I mean, no one's being like mean blatantly, but they're like whispering, like, what does she do? Like she's always like, or whatever. It's just weird. It's a weird, like, how do
It's
they have money?
judgment.
They don't, like, what do they do? It's judgment, and they don't even know what, people even at my church, I feel like do that. You know what I mean? So I'm always like, I'm very guarded. I'm very guarded. And I'm just like very protective of that. And I'm just like, so because of that, my circle is very small,
Yeah.
outside of like businesses or going to I love masterminds because, I've actually created masterminds in the past just because for that, just so I have community of people who get it and understand and who also are like peers. They're going through again, we're all in the same boat, going in the same direction, that sort of thing. That's the community I seek because they're people that they're high performance entrepreneurs that understand. And sometimes they're parents too, which is helpful because I'm like, oh, okay, they get it, the different things that we have to go through and what we have to do. But Yeah, it's difficult. It's definitely one of those weird things in life. I'm not sorry. Um, I'm blessed. I'm grateful for all I've had and all I've accomplished. But yeah, the community piece is it's important. It's kind of what fuels you and keeps you going. And so it's you have to look very hard and be very selective about where you spend your time and who you spend it with.
It's so true because they're either aligned and they're amplifying your energy or they're draining it because you have to like explain yourself and convince them you're a good mom or whatever it is. And it's just like, I know
Yep.
exactly what you mean. And so, like, I'm really curious because when I get these similar like judgments, and it's, as you're rising as a woman, you have so much power, so much freedom. I mean,
Mhm.
that comes with a lot of envy too. And so when you
Mhm.
have that, maybe you don't experience it, but if you're going up and you're like so powerful, maybe you've stayed so humble and kind and just like approachable. How did you manage to keep your like self in such a space where you're just so like a pure soul?
Well, a lot of, when I was starting to have success, nobody in my family ever went to college. Nobody ever really like owned businesses, whatever. Like I'm the most successful person in my family by a landslide, right?
Hmm.
And when I started, and I say that in a humble way, I don't mean anything bad, but I always, too, something that was important to me was to help other people and my team too, because your team sees and they're like, oh, wow, look at all this money they make. And it's like, well, they don't realize that running a business that, half of that money goes to fulfillment and
Yeah,
costs and things to run a company, right? And they don't realize you have whatever, a couple $100,000 of overhead. They just see the what's happening. It's like everything. When you have success, people just see the end result. They don't see the heck, all the
the
things that it took to
labor, the
get there.
stress. Yeah.
But I feel like the biggest thing that's helped me a lot, and just to help me break other people's guard down just a little bit, or the weird attack stuff, is just giving. I give a lot. I
That's
give a
awesome.
lot. Bought my mom a house. I bought my dad a house. I bought my mom a
Wow.
car. I bought my dad a car. But I mean, I've just given and given and given it, and I love that. It feels good because it feels a little weird.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie. You know how they say you have like those subconscious stuff and like this baggage from when you're a kid. Like I almost feel guilty sometimes, or I used to, not now, but back then, I felt almost guilty. Like, do I deserve this? Should I have this? Or I feel weird because they don't have hardly anything, and I have everything, right? So it's a lot of giving and just sharing and giving back and giving of not just money, but my time, vacations, trying to help create memories of things. Because it's not about things so much to me. Like even now, I don't care about the things. I care about the experiences and the memories that I'm creating with the people that I love, right? That's what matters to me. So, yeah, I think that's been, and I'm a humble person. I don't feel like you just become humble. I think you are. And I want the best for everybody. I want others to have it. And I want it more than anything, I want to show them what's possible. You know what I mean? But it is interesting. Like when you try to, like I've tried to help other people out and show them, like empower them, like, hey, here's how you can do this, or here's how you, it's so that it's there for the taking. But besides my own children, people normally, even if you give it to them on a silver platter, they don't do it. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I know it's
so I'm
crazy.
like, okay, it's a weird thing. It's like you're like, you can have it. Here's what you have to do. But most people aren't willing to put the work in that it takes and
Yeah.
the time and the energy and the effort. But at the same time, I think that the biggest thing that keeps me humble is just my beginnings, my humble beginnings, very humble beginnings, and my a string of family who, didn't have anything ever. And I was just like, I just was the girl who wanted something different, for my life. Something bigger. I dreamed bigger, and maybe that's a God-given gift. I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but that drive to like to get it and to go after it and to no matter what make it happen, that resilience of just getting knocked down, getting back up. That's a God-given gift, I feel like, because it's not like, again, you're not born with, you can develop resilience, but it's like charm or all the things like we were talking about before. I feel like it's just something that you either have it or you don't. It's like an internal little fire in my belly that just never, that flame never goes out, you
That's
know?
amazing. I love that you just consciously gave back so much just to balance out that separation that can easily feel as you're rising like a rocket, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh,
Totally.
because that's
Totally.
uncomfortable.
and giving back to others and charities and just other people. Like, I really hate to see people suffering or struggling or, I mean, it breaks my heart. That's that kind of stuff. Cause I know what's possible. I know what it's there for the taking for the people that want it. And nobody could say to me ever, well, you had this or you had that, or you had this and something different, some unique advantage. I had none of that, like zero. So everything was like self-made. So I just feel like it's, if I can do it, you can do it, but also just giving back and empowering people and showing people and sharing with people. I feel like that's the kind of stuff, taking my family, my whole family on vacations and things like that, just sharing the love, sharing the goodness, you know, that I've been able to experience and achieve. So that's the big part. That's the most important part, honestly.
Absolutely. And one thing that I'm really curious about is, the idea that you came up during a time when there was a male dominated industry and not needing to kind of turn into this like more hyper masculine grind and like, numbers driven. It sounds like you're still really compassionate and heart centered. And so, how did you stay in that space and really cultivate the belief that you could still succeed being that more heart centered, more feminine leader?
Right. Well, I don't think that online, I don't think that that is as accepted in our world, and you're in this world too, Olivia, every day. I mean, this online space, it's still very, very much so, whether it's male dominated or not. It is more male than female for sure, but there is still very much a, because I'm 50 now, right? So I see these 20 something year olds coming up and I'm like, okay, they're very much so like hustle, grind, get up at 4 a.m. every day. And I'm just like, you know, like that's not my MO. Like I don't, I feel like balance in life,
Yeah.
I don't feel like you have to do that to, and I know that's the
Burnout.
thing right now, all the rage, but oh, you do burn out. And I've been there, I've done that. I've burned out a million times. I've sold three, built it up, sold it, built it up, sold it. People are like, oh, you just got to the pinnacle. Why did you sell it? Burned out,
Mhm.
burned out. Like in 2010, I remember I sold an information marketing business that I had that was very, very successful. But I was so burned out and I was like, I literally got off of a webinar one day and I was like, I'm never, ever doing a webinar ever again, ever. I'm so done. I was like, I was doing like 1,000 webinars a year. I mean, I was just over it,
Wow.
to my list, to other people's lists. I mean, literally like a few a day. It was insane. I'm like, I'm over this. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. So you do burn out. And so, yeah, I don't subscribe to the whole, hustle, 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 grind, 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 4 a.m. I don't, for me, it's about prioritization, intentionality, balance. You know what I mean? Family first, always. I mean, I work hard. I love work. Like I love what I do. I work very hard. I'm working at midnight. I'm sending emails and texts at midnight a lot of times. But it's like it's intentional. It's after my kids have gone to bed or after we've had dinner or gone wherever, right? So it's not like I'm never sacrificing my family for work. And the whole hustle thing, I just don't think it's true. I don't like that about this space. I wish people, I feel like they think they have to have that. I think that that's why a lot of people don't enter in or come into it because they think it's that. And it does not have to be that. Absolutely does not have to be that. So yeah, it's a kind of it's a weird, it's just, it's young. It's the young, the really flashy, that kind of thing. Like that's just not you'll never see me flashing stuff or ever. And you never have and you never will, right? That kind of thing and that whole hustle, hustle, hustle. I just don't, it's not for me, I see people
Absolutely.
doing it, but I feel like it stops some of the people who would come into this business and who want it, but don't think they can have it because of that,
I think
so
you're right. And I relate to you because I'm on my second company. The first one, it was grind, hustle, run into a brick wall, and I just burn out. I was exhausted. I was just so stressed out. Now, this
mhm.
second time I'm on year three, and I feel like it's really way more of an enjoyable journey because it's not about proving yourself or getting to this end
Mhm.
number. It's about the impact. It's about falling in love with the journey and the work. And I feel like when you get there, it's like you've truly arrived because you're not in that ego space of needing to prove yourself, which is so fulfilling because it's like finally we get to actually lead with purpose and not, that's what this whole podcast is about, is high achieving while aligned, because without alignment, you're living out of integrity, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's gotta be and it's sad because we figured that out after we burned out, crashed, burned, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
for if you could save one person from going through that and empower more people and inspire more people to come in to the business and learn from your mistakes, right? Because we're gonna learn with either our time or our money, and you don't have to spend all your time, I'd rather pay someone to go, hey, this is, oh, that's how you did it verse and then save myself the heartache and the crash, the burn, the burnout, all the things, right? So that's another thing. I didn't really have a lot of mentors when I was young. So I had to kind of find those people. And I wish that's one thing that I'm trying to be a mentor to my girls because I feel like that wasn't like readily available to me. And I didn't even know where to go to look to find that, when I was their age. So
that's awesome. Well, I've got just one more question, and it's more about like, typically when I meet someone like yourself that's really come from humble beginnings to rise and just continue to evolve, like there's usually a big element of faith to hold that vision. Like, how has faith or spirituality played a role in your success?
everything. It's everything. Honestly, not having other female, most of my career, not having other peers or people that I could lean into or divulge information to or ask questions. I mean, a little bit, but not a lot. There's not a lot. And most of the mentors were males, and maybe they weren't spiritual, or maybe they didn't believe in God. I don't know. Everybody has their thing, right? But I came from, I mean, my mom's dad and my dad's dad were both pastors. So
Wow.
I kind of grew up and yeah, I grew up and that. And so I've been very rooted in my faith my whole life. And anytime I've even kind of I've never ran from it, but like, you get overwhelmed or you're busy or whatever, and you kind of like, you don't prioritize it in your life. Every single time it's bit me, hard. And I'm like, I come back, I'm like, okay, that's like my rock. That's like my foundation. That's my, family, faith, all those things are like, that's the stuff that's the most important thing to me, and I feel it's like a God-given gift to live the life I'm living and to pour into others. And every day I'm like, I'm so grateful. I have so much gratitude. So much gratitude. And I every day I'm like, thank you, God, for what I have and everything. And let me impact other people. Let me inspire, let me impart wisdom. Let me be an example or lead the way or be the light for people who are on their way there or who want it and don't even think they can have it. That's the biggest thing. So I'm like, you can have it. Like, I don't want to convince anybody. I just want to like lead by example and show people that it is possible and they can have it and they can remain true to themselves and be themselves and still be humble and be grateful and be kind and all the things and have it all. Like you don't have to turn into some jerk face just because you become really successful. You know what I mean? It's like just all the things. And I want to be an example. I have 3 daughters who are watching not just listening to what I say, but watching every move I make. Right. So that's the most important thing. And I want them rooted in their faith as well, as they grow and experience challenges and grow their businesses and do all the things as well. So very important to me and the most important thing, honestly.
I'm so glad you brought up like just the idea of being grateful for every little thing, because it's like so easy once you get this success. I see people get entitled and they just want more, more, more. It's never enough. And it's just like this endless cycle of just burnout. And so I think that gratitude and that faith is just that way to just remind yourself, hey, like I am so blessed, and this is a blessing to get to serve these people and just truly live from
Mhm.
that mindset. Cause I think that's what keeps you so grounded to like even like jump on calls with me. I'm like, oh, I get to work with Cris. This is amazing. Like,
Yeah, I would never be the ego girl who's like egomaniac or think I'm too far. I mean, I see a lot of like myself and like just when I met you, I was like, oh man, she's so cool. Like I love that community and having other people around that you can help or inspire or motivate or whatever it is, right? Just help them in some way, serve them in any way that I possibly can and see them win. It's like that's like the best feeling. And that's why we do it, right? That's the stuff that's like that feels so good. And yeah, I love that. And people, you do see that a lot. You see a lot of people in our industry, they go from nothing, they have a 6-figure month or a 7-figure month, and they just turn into this different person. And you're like, oh my gosh, like they're too big to talk to people, or they're too big. And it's like, that's not real. That's like a facade. That's like a weird, and I never want to be that. I would never, I've always wanted to stay true to who I am in the process. And it's not easy to do. Sometimes it's a weird little world. Sometimes you get around all these people and it's like, gosh, it's such a different thing. And I have some leaders that I look up to that that I've seen they've been able to do that, and they've remained humble and kind and just very giving of their time. And that inspires me, and I hope to do the same as I, continue to grow and lead into the next chapter of the season of life or season of business, wherever that may lead me. So
Thank you so much for sharing your story and journey. I'm sure you're going to inspire so many women and men listening to this that are just thinking like, how can I do all this? Is it possible? And just hearing you say it is creates the space for them to get creative to start to move in that direction. So thank you for your time. We appreciate you.
awesome. Thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it.